represent Rutgers on the World Wide Web, always, right? And I want to introduce Alejandro Ruiz today, or Alex as we affectionately know him. He is the University Safety Officer and Associate Director of REHS, Rutgers Environmental Health and Safety. He has 20 years of experience in the environmental health and safety field, 18 of those years at Rutgers. Outside of Rutgers, Alex serves as the chairperson of the New Jersey State Industrial Safety Committee, administrator of the American Society of Safety Engineers, Committee of Hispanic Safety Professionals, voting member of AANSI Z9 Ventilation System Standards, and the current director of New Jersey's Health and Safety Certification Review Preparation Course. He is a past president of the New Jersey chapter of the American Society of Safety Engineers, past president of the College Health Environmental Safety Society, and he's also an adjunct professor at the Rutgers School of Engineering and instructor at the Rutgers School of Public Health. Alex earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees at New Jersey Institute of Technology with a BS in Electrical Engineering, an MS in Safety Engineering, and an MS in Industrial Hygiene. Certified industrial hygienist, certified safety professional, certified hazardous materials manager, certified environmental safety and health trainer, safety management specialist, and he is authorized OSHA construction outreach trainer. Alex?
Well, thank you. Well, thought it was standing room only, so it's so most of you have met me. Who has not met me yet before? All right, so let me know what site you're on, because we'll send somebody to do those inspections. I'm just kidding. So we're going to try to keep this short. Let's see if this works. It does. So we're here for 3 hours, so you have hopefully a packed lunch. Doesn't go over well, right? No, we know 60 minutes. So what we're going to try to do is try to go over what we do as REHS, our roles, and also some of our expectations of us to help assist all of different our IP&O partners. But just to give you some background on what we do. So our department services the whole university community, from our guests, our students, our faculty, our researchers, our IP&O. Oh, I just heard some noise there. So the breadth is wide. So it's kind of hard to itemize exactly every single thing we do. So we're going to try to at least give you an idea of what we do for all of our IP&O partners, because ultimately we all have to work as a team, and our goal is to actually be part of that team. So some of our services that we deliver that you'll probably see, and you probably worked with us in multiple avenues. Some of the things are we develop and also implement some of our health and safety programs. We help write them, but they're actually approved by the University Safety Committee or some other different organized groups that we have at the university that head up different compliance programs. So we've fulfilled some of those needs. We also spend a lot of time on risk and legal mitigation, and we're going to try to emphasize a lot of this training on that portion of the risk and how do we reduce our risks. Going down to, we do assessments, we do different types of either risk analysis, risk assessments, hazard assessments, depending on the situation. Most projects, when they start in the beginning, we may not know exactly what we're getting into, and we will be in the beginning there with you. And during the process, if we discover other hazards that result of the project itself. We do a lot of the training programs, so all the compliance, health and safety programs done and provided by the university are primarily provided through our department. We have a staff that's pretty much trained, educated, and their career is in health and safety. So they're always going to be a resource for the individuals who are being trained or receiving training from us. And we'll talk about a little bit that also. The other ones are things that you may not even notice that we're doing. Oh, okay, I figured out what that button does. So we do a lot of compliance assistance. We represent the university with a lot of different regulatory agencies, and we also do a lot of things in the background where most people don't even know. Pretty much all the hazardous waste at the university goes somewhere, and our office manages it. We try to do this in a compliant, ethical, and making sure we're stewards to the environment. That includes biological waste, biological waste, and hazardous waste, and also universal waste. And we also do a lot of emergency response. Different than emergency services and RUPD, they do a lot of first response related to fire or medical or law enforcement related incidents. We Also do a lot of responses related to chemical injuries, incidents, sometimes in conjunction with emergency services, sometimes in conjunction with REPD. Most of the time, our emergency responses are involving other IP&O divisions and some of our different operations, because they're going to be the ones who are either discovering it or they're going to help us rectify it. And then we participate in a lot of various committees. The university, as you all know, is loaded with committees. There's a committee for every committee to discuss another committee. And we saw that through a lot of the integration, but we're involved with a lot of these larger committees that are made up of stakeholders, and we're partners with them to be able to provide them the services related to regulatory compliance involved with that. So when they make a decision in a policy, we try to ensure that we're consistent with some of our other regulatory requirements, but also trying to enhance what they're trying to do, so we're not asking people to do things twice. Now, our partners in compliance world, and some of them are in IP&O. Most of you have worked with emergency services, we have worked with codes, but our compliance world also encompasses research. For example, we work with the Office of Research and Economic Development. We also work with the University Ethics and Compliance and Risk Management and Insurance and the Office of General Counsel. Because each one has a component, and it's like a big, large Venn diagram. We act in conjunction with them because we want to make sure our client gets the same consistent information. It doesn't help us if each one of them are working different and giving different advice. So sometimes when we get a question, we may have to work with our other partners to ensure that our answer is consistent and is not contrary to their advice. So we try to develop. Sometimes it may take a couple of days, maybe it take a couple of weeks, but in the end game, when we've discovered there's regulations coming down the pipeline through the federal standards or even state requirements, we try to pull in some of our stakeholders from our other compliance groups to make sure that they know what's on the radar. We do frequently meet with different groups here to be able to find out what's on their radar so they can put it on ours. And then we work together with them to see if it's minimal impact to us, we'll assist them. If it's a significant impact for us, we try to drive the program so we can ensure that our stakeholders and our clients can easily comply with the regulations they have. Now, there's a couple definitions that we would like to stress with, because everybody gets this confused. Everybody uses the word safety all the time. It's in our title of our department, but safety is a simple concept where we're trying to be relatively free of harm. But to get to that point, we need to know what the hazard is. And when we try to work with our different groups is try to identify what those hazards are in a work activity you're doing before you start the job. Because if we know what the hazard is, or maybe many, so there may be many different types of hazards, well, what is the risk of that hazard? And there is that confusion about, well, what are we assessing? We're assessing the risk, or are we assessing the hazard? Well, to put the concept in perspective, right? A hazard is there's a shark in the water. The risk is, should you be swimming in it? Because if you're swimming in the water, we know there's a shark, there's a high probability that there's a risk, that there's a likely harm for you with that shark, right? And that's what the main definition is. We try to identify the hazard, and then we start applying principles to reduce that risk. Because none of our jobs are free of hazards or free of risk. What we can do is reduce the amount of risk. So we can do our job, we can do it safely, and we can get the job done in a cost-effective way, which is not costing us more in the end, because if we have a high-risk activity and something occurs, then that project is going to be slowed down, or we have significant issue with, end up with being a catastrophic failure that involves a fatality or severe injury. Now, what are the different types of hazards? And we have many at the university. Safety hazard is the most common one that most individuals can see. These are some of our programs that we have out there. We have programs with, well, it does have a laser, related to spills, slips, trips, and falls. When you're doing work and you have egress issues that you're impacting the occupants, those are pretty much obvious risks. Confined space requirements, obvious risks. We have issues with lockout, tagout. We have programs that we train our staff on to be able to reduce the amount of energy on pieces of equipment so they can do their job safely. And these are all different types of training programs that our office provides for all of our maintenance and renovations groups, and even our ancillary facilities departments that do specific things like utilities. They work on the outside, but they also may affect the inside of buildings, and they have work activities that may have a significant harm to them. Now, each one of these are programs that the employees will know they're in. The question is, does the supervisor also know that they're in? So that way they know that they need to send an individual to get significant additional training. And we're working with employee services now with identifying the roles at the university and IP&O to see what type of trainings they need, so that way we can have individuals with a list of different trainings that they should have, so that way if they move around from different groups, that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. It doesn't hurt to have somebody going to train twice, but the idea is to figure out what types of trainings they do have so we have a baseline. There are many physical hazards that we have at the university, and these doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to impact you directly. For example, if you're working in a loud environment, it's going to impact the employees. These are the physical hazards. You may be working with lasers, or you may be working in an area that may have radiation, radiation or other types of EMF. You didn't introduce the work, it's already there. So if you're going to be doing renovations or activities in laboratories, it's good to know what the different types of hazards you may be exposed to. That way we can start working on the risk assessments on it to see what type of risk do you have. So maybe they just have to put all the work that they're doing away, and that way you have no exposure. There's quite a few labs that we work with biological material. Right now, after the integration, we have increased our labs in the amount of biological work that we are now dealing with. So Rutgers has about 3,000 research labs, and I would say about half of them or more are related to some biological research. So the research that they're working with varies in severity. Some are simple, regular biological basic science, until you have other research that deals with biological 3 and works with infectious materials. So depending on what lab you're working with, the hazard is there. The question is, how do we adjust the risk to reduce or eliminate that hazard? Chemical, same thing, 3,000 labs. Not all of them work with severe chemicals. They all work with some type of chemical. And when we're working in labs or another location we're renovating, we have to be able to determine what is that program space going to be utilized as. So that way when we have research going in there, the location is adequate for that. And this is where we get involved in the beginning of the program and renovation, especially if you're redesigning a laboratory, to determine who's moving in there, to determine also if they need ventilation, they need pervious flooring, other types of items that they may need for that specific research. And this is why we work with our partners in Office of Research and Economic Development, because we'll work with the research and academic affairs, what type of research they're doing, so that way we're providing the right amount of controls, because their granting agency may require things that you may not know. And they should be telling you, the principal investigator or the department, but these are things that you can't value engineer out because it may be required by the NIH, it may be required by the FDA or USDA or CDC. So these are different types of requirements that we assist you early on some of the other regulatory things on a granting agency that you may not know of, and we assist you. The other ones are basic ergonomic issues. When we design things and install things, we also have to think about the worker who has to maintain it. So it's easy right now with the ergonomic tables because Steelcase or other manufacturers for furniture sell the ergonomic equipment. But when we're installing new air handling systems, or we have to install equipment that we have to maintain for preventive maintenance, if it's not accessible and it's not easy to reach or easy to change out, it becomes an ergonomic issue for some of our employees, especially if they're going to be prolonged postures in awkward positions where you may have an individual that may have to lift something that's heavy that they're not mechanically positioned to be able to lift it. So these are things that we look at prevention through design. Can we design things into our installations, that way it basically makes repairs and maintenance efficient. Because if it's not efficient, it doesn't get done properly. If it doesn't get done properly, it becomes a repair or a issue that we can't fix. And we all have locations where we have mechanical equipment which are not accessible. And then they become one of the things that we are not able to repair as what we would like to. And or it costs a lot of money to set up scaffolding or other equipment to be able to reach it. So when we look at where our hazard sources are, they're in every phase of the project that IP&O is involved with. Right from the beginning, from planning and design. We had design standards that we try to include certain things into it to make it more uniform for our installation, so that way it makes it easy for preventive maintenance. But also, they're there to be able to achieve certain performances that we need for our other types of standards and regulations that we have to follow. Because there's a misconception about code. So code is designed to make a building safe for somebody to occupy. And then we have health and safety requirements that make it easy, makes it safer for the work activities you're going to do in it. So if you're working in a research lab, that activity has a hazard. So we need to make sure that even if you meet minimum code, the operations in there may still be hazardous. Code won't catch that. So our safety regulations that we have that we follow through PIOSH and OSHA are designed to be able to look at the worker doing the activity so we can come up with different engineering controls to be able to eliminate that hazard. So this is where when we look at it, they say, well, why do we need it? Well, that's done through a risk assessment. And the codes are, in some things for OSHA, is prescriptive, and other standards are performance-based. We like the performance-based because we leave it up to us to determine what's the best way to achieve it. The prescriptive ones we really can't do anything about. So most of our operations, all the way down to decommissioning, which most people forget about. We have I know some of our buildings are here for a long time, so we're not decommissioning them anytime soon. But we do get to a point where we decommission buildings, and then we need to start taking out the hazards that are involved with that building. Sometimes it may be asbestos. It may be if it's working with, if there's a laboratory that we may have to go assess the lab to make sure that they removed all the chemicals, even to light ballast or fluorescent lamps. Each one has a program that we have to follow to meet regulations either through the US EPA, New Jersey DEP, PIOSH, you name the regulatory agency. We need to be able to satisfy that we decommission a location properly, so when we get audited or inspected, we can show that results. Now, when we're talking about the different types of hazards, right, we try to identify the hazards. There may be certain hazards that you may not be able to identify with, if you haven't been able or haven't been exposed to that knowledge. And we know that over the years, we try to do quite a few different types of training to be able to assist in assisting you in hazard recognition. Now, hazard recognition takes time. Some of them are obvious. They stand right out. I know that's a hazard. Other ones may not be as evident as you would think. And when you bring us up early into the project, and for us to assist you, we have some experience at the university that we can identify some of the known hazards that we have typically at the university to assist you, especially if you're new to managing a project. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that we have that we can easily assist you up front to let you know, hey, this is something you may want to program into your bid, because it may increase the cost. But if we do it now, it's a little bit cheaper than doing it later. And then when we get to the risk assessments, and we'll talk about that too, because that's important. How bad is a risk? We use the shark analogy as, you know, there's a risk that there's a shark in the water, but there's people that swim with the sharks now in SeaWorld, or if you go to a different vacation, right? So how do they swim with the sharks knowing that the sharks want to eat them? So what type of controls do you typically see? You put them in a cage, right? So the person's in a cage, that is the guard to protect that person from the shark. I personally wouldn't go into the cage, into the water, but some people want to take that risky activity. And we'll talk about some of that. Is that an acceptable risk, right? Or is that something that we could transfer to somebody else? Because these controls is important, because once we identify the hazard, we have to determine, well, how frequent or likely is this going to occur? And also, how bad is it if it does occur? And this is what we call a risk management matrix. This risk matrix is basically on setting up the priorities. Which ones do we want to tackle first? And that basically goes into deciding what is our acceptable risk. Because when we talk about acceptable risk, there's ways that we can control things. And most of you have been working in facilities that already have different types of ideas of how to protect the worker. And I usually tell people caution tape is not an appropriate way to protect people at Rutgers, right? As soon as we see caution tape, we're like, that doesn't work at Rutgers, right? It's called the finish line, because that's where everybody just breaks it right through the process. So putting up caution tape is only good for temporary when you're there, but it's not an adequate way of controlling things. So what we try to do is try to control things through engineering control. And that has multiple layers. That could either be done by eliminating the hazard, which doesn't always work, because we may need that hazard there to work with it. You can reduce it by adding engineering controls. This is what we do in research labs. We'll put a fume hood If you're working in a area that you're doing some renovations, we have you putting mechanical air systems that takes the air out of the room to the outside through a filtered way, through filtering media. That is engineering control. We know there's a potential for dust accumulation. We remove the dust, send it out. And then we have other safety devices that we provide for interlocks. This prevents somebody from accidentally going into things. This is when we do installations. We have all these new enclosures, which is now required by code. And the idea for that is basically to eliminate the person from accessing that particular hazardous energy. It could be electrical, it could be chemical, it could be as simple as a laser. Your CD player has an enclosure. I don't know if anybody uses CD players anymore, but those are the little discs, remember back in the days? I like telling my daughter what a floppy disk is. She's like, what is that? Yeah. Some people may remember the 8-tracks. Well, yeah, but the idea is that the technology is incorporated. If it didn't have the covers, it's actually a laser that can cause harm. But since it's enclosed, it's an engineering. So it's provided some type of safety device to prevent somebody from going into her. And the other one is warnings, right? How many of you have really paid attention to the warning signs in an area? Not much. It's becoming more, it's like sign pollution. We have so many warning signs up there that people just ignore them. Or they don't really know what they mean. So warning signs is a way of an administrative control to be able to warn somebody that there is something dangerous there. But if it's not a foolproof way. And then you get down to some of the procedures and then personal protective equipment. And people say, hey, just put safety glasses on and we'll protect ourselves. Well, the idea is we want to be able to eliminate it. And I use a car analogy, right? On your car, when you're driving your car and it's snowing outside, what is your engineering control in the car? If you end up sliding.
Slowing down.
Slowing down, well, slowing down is an administrative control, right? That's a decision maker, right? What slows your car down? Brakes, right? That is an engineering control. I'm like, oh, why was that? What's a personal protective equipment in a car? Seatbelt. Your seatbelt and airbag, right? How do you know your seatbelt and airbag works?
The lights are
When do you find out if it does work? When you had the accident. And that's where PPE lasts. PPE is only designed to affect protection when the incident already happened. Right? It's too late to put your gloves on, too late to put your safety glasses on. And this is where we try to stress is that we don't want to rely on PPE. We want to rely on all of the other controls, slowing down, deciding if that's a road we want to work or drive on. It's too crowded, right? Most of you guys make the decision. College Ave is not a road you want to drive down during, right? Why?
Traffic and kids.
Yeah, people don't care about the traffic, they care about the kids. But how do the kids cross the road?
anyway they
Blindly.
Blindly, facing the phone, right? So we need to start working on things that we have to also anticipate that there's other individuals working in our buildings that may not be privy to the information that we have about identifying hazards. So we need to protect the public too. And a lot of the projects that we see are done correctly, and then over time, people get complacent and then they don't close the door, or they leave it open and students find their way through. We have this on sites. We put the fence, it's closed, and a couple days later it's open, and what's the student do? Because the shortest distance between one building and another is right through your site. So these are things that we also have to think about, not just protecting our employees, but protecting others. Because risk is what we're trying to reduce, right? We know what the hazard is, can we reduce the risk? And this is done by multiple different ways. This is done by transferring our risk. Right? This could be through insurance or hiring somebody else. This could be done through avoidance. Maybe we won't do this job. Or maybe we won't do it this week. Let's wait till the students leave because we may have a lot of impact to this. So timing is important. We can do risk reduction, which is basically what we try to do is mitigate the risk. We still have to get the job, but how do we implement some of our hierarchy controls to reduce the amount of a hazard or the risk? And then the risk assumption. Sometimes we know that it's going to have to get done. And we do this during shutdowns. We're going to have to shut the building down to be able to do our maintenance. So that's a risk that's risk we're going to have to assume. We know we're going to upset somebody in a building, but it's safer for our workers to shut down the power than trying to satisfy somebody in the building because we don't want to disturb their research. Sometimes we have to make that decision, but this is done through communication. We communicate multiple times ahead of time to let them know we're going to have to do this. Let's program this shutdown to the best time that's available for the occupants. We know that's difficult. You're not going to make everybody happy, but we try to at least achieve that. And maybe have to work in a weekend. We don't do risk ignorance. So risk ignorance is not an acceptable risk management method. And risk management insurance will tell you that indefinitely. Risk ignorance is basically what we call negligence. And it's hard to defend ourselves from liabilities if we do risk ignorance, especially if we know about it. Doing the other methods, we prove that we don't have negligence. Purposely putting somebody in a situation that we know is risky and they get hurt or get severely injured, it's easily proven in courts and tort claims. So we try to avoid that too. Now, given an example of what these all are interchangeable. Let's think about the diving board in Werblin, right? Anybody been on the diving board in Werblin? It's pretty high. Have everybody seen it? Yeah. It has multiple layers, right? So risk avoidance is saying, I'm not jumping off that thing, right? I did it when I was a kid. I don't know if I have enough cojones to actually jump off that thing. It's just scary. You go up there, my knees buckle. So risk acceptance is, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Risk mitigation is, well, maybe I'll jump from the lower one because hitting the water at that height is going to hurt less, or maybe I feel more comfortable in doing that. And risk transfer is what we typically do a lot here. We're going to hire somebody to do that risky task. Right? We don't have staff here doing roofing work. We hire out. It's a dangerous activity, and if you're specialized in it, that's the best way to do it. We don't do asbestos abatement with in-house staff. We hire a professional, licensed, and accredited a group that does it and make sure that we ensure compliance. Because the risk is not just severity in getting hurt. It's also compliance in a program, or one of our laws, right? We have a water pipe break in a building. We may do small things, but large things, what do? We hire out a professional company that can do it because they have all the equipment and trained staff to do it. So we do a lot of risk transfer. One of the other mechanisms for risk transfer is that we purchase insurance, what risk management does, to cover some of our dangerous activities. And what they do is they'll ask us to be able to assess that activity if it's something that they want to assume. And we may say, yeah, they could probably do this activity if they include these engineering controls or these hazard controls. And what they'll do is that risk managers will accept that. And they'll transfer the risk to one of the insurance companies that they have. Because Rutgers has well over 30 different types of insurance coverages. And your insurances may fall into one of them. So why do we want to do this? Well, for any projects, maintenance, repairs, and also for renovations, we want to get caught earlier in the process because we want to work with you. That's our goal. Our goal is to be able to assist you in getting your job or your activity done in a way that is cost effective, right? Because that's what we want to do. But we also want to make sure that we include some of these safety components originally in the project. That way, toward the end, because you have to look at the whole life cycle of safety. It's not just when you install it, it's also when it's used and when it gets taken out. So we will try to minimize the impact to our employees who are doing the preventive maintenance, right? Because they're going to have to go out there and fix whatever's installed. So when we look at our design and we get caught up in the beginning, we usually ask, well, how is the mechanic going to change the filters? Can they reach those valves? Because we know that there's a portion that they have to do that's going to be some hazards that are going to be newly identified for them. Same thing as if do they have to open up a panel to do troubleshooting? Because if you open up the panel, now you have the potential for arc flashing, which creates another need for electricians that are trained to have enough protection for that arc flash potential. This is why we include ourselves in the original part of the design. We had a situation which got rectified where the architect engineers put in one of our buildings panels, and all the panels required a Category 4 suit. That's what they were categorized. None of our electricians are trained or equipped to reach that level. And all it needed was an upstream circuit protection to reduce the amount of energy so that way all of our panels are Category 2 or less. That our electricians can do. So we want to make sure that things get installed downstream that does not have to be changed later on, because that costs money. So we would have caught that up early in the beginning. We would have found out, hey, we're working with employees that only are trained to this level. They're not going to hire special high voltage electricians just to change out a breaker or to fix and troubleshoot a motor or a light. Not practical, costs too much money, and it's going to create a situation where we're going to put individuals in danger because they may not know the difference, because we don't train our staff to Category 4. So we include ourselves to fix that issue. Now, I know it seems contrary to, well, why do we need to design safety up front? You know, talk to the area managers, they'll tell you. There's a lot of things that are difficult to get to. And it looks great on paper, on a 2D, but when you put it in 3D inside a room, these are difficult for our employees to achieve, and we have had employees get injured doing some activities. And what we're trying to do is eliminate that situation. So if we can integrate ourselves with your help early in the project, we want to be able to provide you some information to be able to find cost-effective ways of eliminating that hazard. That's going to occur in the future. Now, the reason why we do that is because in the beginning, it's easier to implement safety. The further out we go into the project, it's harder to change things up. And then when it becomes an issue for the operation side to install this. And we see this with fall protection all the time. We get inspected by PIOSH quite a few times, and some of the things that they may find is fall protection. So we're building an area that you need to access, and they'll put a roof and there's serviceable equipment up there. The code says that you need to have a protection at 10 feet. Well, that's only for code, for mechanical access. But all the other roof drains and all the other mechanical equipment up there that's not considered serviceable under the code now provides a potential for a fall for an individual falling from a couple stories. Still has a maintenance activity, but doesn't fall under the mechanical code. This is where the PIOSH and the OSHA looks at the worker itself. So we try to include that, because later on they're going to have to include guardrails, other mechanical systems, or they'll put anchor points for fall protection, which becomes a issue for us for training, because that's a personal protective equipment. That's the last resort we wanted to get to. So if we get it early on in the beginning, and then toward the end, all we're going to be doing is basically doing more training on individuals how to properly use or how to see if there's any equipment for them to do it safely. Because there's quite a few things that we do as a service for you. And most people ask, what do we do? What's our role for IP&O? And there's a lot of them. One of the main ones is we actually tried to look at all the regulatory compliance requirements, because they do come up pretty frequently. And how does it impact us? And these are laws, standards, regulations, permitting that may be required for certain installations that you have. We will assist you in that process. We don't leave it to you to try to figure it out yourselves. It's a complicated system, so it's easier for us to do the work for you. Some things require more lead time than others. So if you're installing a generator, it may take a couple months of us trying to get the permit for you, so that way when you connect it and install it, it's already compliant. There's a lot of consensus standards out there and best practices. These are above and beyond that code is, because code is minimum. To be able to get to the point where, what are others doing to reduce the risks and the hazards that we have? So we'll go out and we'll start looking at other universities and other professional standards out there to see what do we do to minimize the risk. We also try to work with you on communicating these risks and hazards to the occupants. Because sometimes the occupants, especially if you're doing a renovation, especially with the indoor air quality, you're doing a roofing project or some other activity that's bringing in contaminated air into the building, the occupants are going to be concerned. They smell something, they're concerned about their health. And what we try to do is try to help communicate that risk to them. Sometimes it may mean that we may need to add other hazard controls, proper ventilation, or change the balancing of the building for that project. But if you have an issue with an occupant, feel free to get us involved in the beginning, so that way we can properly assist you in that process. And our process to give the occupant and the stakeholder the right information that's factual, and then help them understand the corrective measures that are being implemented are adequate. Because there may be an inconvenience to the occupants, it doesn't mean it's a health hazard. And we will work with you on that, because sometimes an occupant doesn't want to be dismissed, saying, there's no problem here. That's not what they want to hear. They smell something, they see something, they hear something, they want to make sure it's safe for them. And we will help you through that process. We also work with your groups on getting rid of waste. If it's in the mechanical operations, we get rid of their hazardous waste. We also get rid of the universal waste. If you're working on a clinic and they have medical waste, we'll help you through that process and trying to get all that waste out. We also assist you in identifying rare, and sometimes these are unique safety hazards. And they do come up. Every week or every couple of weeks we get a unique safety concern, and then it's going to be beyond the capability of the individual operational unit or renovations or contract services or project management. And we will try to help them assist through that process, because sometimes we have to do homework too. And we're staffed with highly professional, I mean, they're very professional, but highly skilled and talented. But there's certain things that we've never seen either. And what we do is we try to do our homework to provide you the proper advice. We don't guess. Guessing gets people hurt. So we may have to go back and do some research. And these goes back into the site assessments too. Asbestos is a common thing, but we also have lead. We have tanks that are found, rather regulated materials that if they're found, we will assist you in getting rid of them. So if you hire a company to come in, they just can't throw things out into the dumpster. Our office gets involved in assisting them on what's the proper way of getting rid of things. On certain large projects, they'll hire a company to take out all the ballast, the lights, or other material that's regulated. We will work with them too. Our role gets highly involved in the mitigation. There's a lot of standard practice that it's adequate. It's already been done. Most of you already have implemented hazard controls when you're doing indoor air quality, the proper ventilation or proper materials being brought in for the mastics, the paints, low VOCs. You're already doing that, but sometimes you have these rare occasions where you may have to add additional risk mitigations. And those are the ones we will try to look for professional practices in other companies. There may be a product out there that will help you do your job safely and not impact the occupants. And we do that through trade shows that we may visit, or by calling up other similar types of industries like ours to see what they do. You'd be surprised at what's out there. We look through professional journals and we'll review them, so we keep ourselves abreast on that. We also are involved with pretty much all the regulatory inspections for the university related to quite a few state and federal and even local agencies. So if you ever get inspected or somebody shows up on site requesting that you make yourself available for an inspection, please call us immediately. We will help you through that process. We are the liaisons for you. We will do the communications. If it's not something in our umbrella, we will bring that compliance partner that I showed you in the Venn diagram in the beginning, because it may be their compliance requirement. We bring them in because it's better to have the compliance organization that is informed and has the relevant answers for that inspector to be brought in. So if we get a USDA inspection for a permit for our planting, we handle that. If a USDA inspection comes in related to an animal, we'll let our ORID, our Office of Research and Economic Development Comparative Medicine Research Group, CMR for the animals, they will take the lead on that. So that's where we always meet and we keep ourselves abreast. We recently had somebody contact us they were saying a fire compliance inspection. So they contacted us and then we contacted Emergency Services, and ended up it wasn't a compliance inspection. It was somebody looking for more statistics and data on fire. So Emergency Services is handling that. So be careful what type of questions you ask, because if it depends on the question, we may have to bring it to who? If it's a request for information. A lot of questions. You guys never dealt with Oprah? Yeah. So sometimes, depending on the request, we may have to move it. And I didn't put that portion, but that's where OGC and all the other groups, they handle the Oprah request. So we will hand it through them. Because sometimes they'll call us directly. They want to know where all the asbestos is. Where's all the asbestos at Rutgers? Well, you got to be a little bit more specific, right? And we'll have Oprah handle and manage that, because we have timelines and other compliance that our legal office will handle. So these are things that we do. Now, these random issues do come up a lot. A random issue is perfect, and we worked with Jasleen and Liz on the drones. Just came out of nowhere 2-3 years ago. The federal government put a kibosh on drone use for companies or commercial operations, which we fall under, without having licensing. So we have to assist in individuals get compliant with the program. So we get things dropped on us all the time by student affairs, right? We had issues with meningitis for the students. Our office got involved in assisting in getting the individuals vaccinated. So we do all these random things that you don't do every year, and it does come up, and it becomes a good problem set. We troubleshoot, and we try to discover a way to get it done. Where we're constantly dealing with a lot of these outline types of compliance issues. Some are affecting IP&O divisions, others don't. But if it does affect IP&O, what we do is we include individual departments, depending on what it is. So emergency services got pulled in because they may have to treat a patient that has meningitis, so we work with them on that. We deal with RUPD on different random issues related to, they get grants for radioactive response. We maintain their equipment. It's a good mutual type of relationship. They have these barricades, we will house them. So all these different things do come up in a way, and we do work with all the different groups. We work with facilities operations a lot on different mechanisms where we may share some of our equipment or vice versa to be able to get the job done safely and done correctly. And then we try to emphasize a lot more on safety briefings. These are things that we want you to do right in the beginning of the day, where you start talking with your crew, figuring out what you're going to do that day, what are the hazards that we discovered yesterday or we're going to potentially work on, and do we need assistance from somebody to ask questions on. And our office is available to answer a lot of these random questions that you may have, because we know it's difficult. It's difficult, right? Because when we do things, we forget that our occupants are also employees. Every faculty, staff, and some of our students are our employees too. And sometimes they say, well, students don't fall under the triage. That's true. But the faculty and the staff and our employees do. And if it's good for our employees, it's going to be good for our students. And when we start working on these buildings, we have to start looking at what individuals consider a hazard. A nuisance is not a hazard, but that nuisance can be interpreted as a hazard. And then you'll get the complaints, or we'll get the complaints, and we have to head over there and we find out that not everything was done, or everything was done properly, but nobody was communicating with everybody in the department. So we get involved with that. The other things that we try to get involved with in assisting our groups, and also the people we hire, is that they have to have the proper site safety plans. If they're going to be working on our campus, they have to demonstrate that they're going to do it in a safe way. So we have a construction company XYZ coming onto our site. Besides them giving the bonding and everything else to our insurance, we need to be able to verify that they are going to do the job safely. Now, our office does not approve their safety plans. We will review them to see if there's compliance with our programs. And then we will basically send back the safety plan that they have seems adequate and has the information that we require. We still reserve comments during the construction project. Things change, right? So just because a safety plan was written and you discover something else, things may change. Job hazard analysis. These are things that all of our staff should be doing with our employees. What type of tasks they're doing, identify the hazards, and how do we mitigate them. Everything we just talked about in the beginning is done in a job hazard analysis. Our office can assist your staff with that, especially if it's a complicated hazardous activity. And we've done that plenty of times with utilities and also some other facilities operations groups. And then we get into the abatement programs that our office will take the lead in hiring them, or at least managing the activity they do. Now, with any abatement project, you already know, it doesn't matter if it's for asbestos or even if it's lead that you're removing and then we're collecting the containers, there's lead time. So the earlier you're getting into a project when the area is accessible for them, it will save a lot of time and money, and also the coordination between different projects. So if you're working with Mike Smith and somebody already has an abatement contract for one portion on the building and you want something abated somewhere else, he's already there. So you might as well yield that mobilization already. They're already there to take care of other projects. Mike will typically tries to bulk these activities for you, but sometimes if you have something in mind that you want to do a couple months from now, a maintenance repair, and you know that they're going to be doing work that may impact asbestos, while they're there, save money and get it done. It saves you a lot of money instead of waiting to remobilize them to do that one project. And then we get into training and education. Now there's a difference between training and education. We do a lot of training. What we're not doing enough of is trying to provide education to our supervisors and managers. And that's the goal we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to the point where we can educate our manager and supervisor and even our employees to identify the hazards and then take action. Because when we do training, it just basically is identifying the hazards and maybe taking some action. But educating somebody gives them the tools to be able to do that themselves. Because we're here as a resource, and we're limited also, but if we give you the ability to be able to do that yourselves, it's a win-win for everybody. All right, so what are our expectations of ourselves to you, right? The big one is we want to be able to provide ethical, right? Responsible and pragmatic advice. That's our goal. Sometimes the advice we give you, we try to include all that. We pride ourselves of being able to make ethical decisions because we have to do what's right for the university, right for the employee, and right for the environment. We want to guide managers on some of the regulatory and other restrictions. Give you guys guidance and knowledge to be able to do that job and know that there are some areas that may impact some of these regulatory, so that way you're not boxing yourselves in. Again, getting there early on in a conversation. We want to be able to work, especially with each one of you, to do an objective job or task assessments. We do our assessments to be objective. You may not like the decision sometimes because it may sound like, well, what? That's not a big hazard. We're utilizing some of our professional and best practices to be able to establish what some of these hazards are and come up with some methods. And the big one is trying to find a cost-effective way of eliminating that hazard. And that usually is left out. You know, they're asking us to do something, but we're trying to find the most cost-effective way. Yes, we don't have to buy the most expensive machine to do something. We can do it a different way. It may take a little longer, but it can be done safely and cost-effective. And the big one is enabling you guys. Enabling supervisors and managers, and especially the frontline staff, to take action. When they identify something, can they fix it? Right? We know there's a lot of layers where if I find something that's a tripping hazard, I have to report it to somebody else, and then they have to put a work order in to be able to find somebody to pay for it. For us, it's like, well, if you identify the tripping hazard, can you take care of it immediately there and then go through the process? Because the longer that tripping hazard is there, the more individuals are getting hurt or potentially exposed to that hazard. And enabling individuals to do the right thing, not leaving it to somebody else to do. Oh, that's somebody else's job. Well, that somebody else's job may not know it's there. So the idea is communicating and doing the right thing and trying to mitigate it. Because if we can enable our employees to do the right thing, a lot of our hazards will be eliminated as soon as somebody sees it, the first person that sees it. And we see this now, and I know you're driving down the road, and you see people littering. That's somebody else's job to clean up, right? Now that's an extreme example where most of you guys are not going to stop the car, pick up the cup that's on the road. But in a university, you know, sometimes we have to take pride in what we do. It may not be a safety hazard, but do something. I mean, every once in a while we'll see something in the ground, we'll pick it up, put it in the garbage, because it's that whole broken window syndrome, where people see things that are not being maintained or cleaned because people don't care. They're waiting for the custodian to come and find it to clean it. We're getting to the point where other people have seen it, we could have taken care of it. And we usually say, don't wait for the safety person to find it. If we found it, there was a lot of missed opportunities. And a lot of those missed opportunities, and we go there, oh yeah, that's been there for weeks. We have over 1,000 buildings and we have less than 50 employees. There's no way we're going to be in every single building every day. But IP&O touches every building every single day. And we want you guys to be our partners too. Because when we start communicating these activities, especially for affected individuals, it's more transparent. People know what we're doing as a transparent type of environment. It's not that we're hiding something from somebody. We're transparent. A lot of our programs are online. A lot of our plans are online. When they talk to us, we tell them exactly what our program is. We don't have anything secret. The only thing that we have secret are things that may be required for national security, but as limited. It doesn't affect everybody from IP&O. We want to make sure that our employees, and our job is to assist you in being able to get their knowledge, skills, and abilities to a level where they can start recognizing some of these hazards, and then either taking care of it or reporting it up. There's quite a few times we've gone through buildings and you see electrical panels that were open. And it was like that for weeks and weeks and weeks. Meanwhile, people are exposed and exposed and exposed continuously. And then it took somebody from our office to see it and then correct it. And don't get me wrong, our staff also is, they're trained, but they're not trained in all the different hazards. So we may have one group that's great with one type of discipline, but not great in the physical hazard. So they may have seen it, but they may not have recognized it as a hazard. So that's an educational process for us too. Because one of the things we want to do is at the end is partner with you guys early in the process. And we mentioned that multiple times. We're a partner. We're not the regulatory police. We end up having a regulatory obligation, but our obligation, believe it or not, is to help you comply with that regulation. None of us in our office enjoys going out there and writing a memo of somebody being non-compliant. We'd rather work with you, get it corrected, and then we could document that we corrected it, because that's what we want to do. Because that way we can learn from the next step. But we want to promote that culture of safety. And that all starts with all of our IP&O partners. Down from the custodian, believe it or not, is one of our key features of our culture of safety, because they're the first ones that are in the building and see something in the morning and they take care of it. And a lot of times they do it, but nobody sees them do it. And if we're waiting for somebody to see us do something that's correct, we miss a lot of the opportunities. I mean, our mechanics, our custodians, our utility, they work hard. And we need to be able to support them in that culture, because our culture of safety goes into different realms, right? We have different portions of our culture of safety where our activities. The benefits of that culture of safety is important too, because we gain a lot of good, I don't even say credit, because it's not credit. It's we get this advantage with our employees that they believe in us that we're doing the right thing. And it's really not credit, but it's goodwill. And that increases productivity, believe it or not. Employees that feel that they're actually being heard and are able to do something correctly and safely, they will actually increase productivity. They will save you money, because they'll find things that are damaged before it becomes a repair. So they may say, this is not working, there's a lot of holes here, let's fix this up before it gets to a bigger thing, right? And we see this, our road in front of our building. We had a small hole in the parking lot, became a big hole, and now it became a major repair. A lot of things that we want our employees to be enabled to do that. Because when we do this, we actually will reduce accidents, reduce injuries, and an employee that is still working, that's not out on injury, is an employee that's productive and working for you. Because right now, you're not getting new employees. So if one of your employees is out of work, everybody else in that crew has to make up for that work, because our requirements for servicing the university is still there. Well, if you have any questions, thank you for being safe today. I think I did my time. Let's see. And we have time for questions. Any questions?
Alex,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your safety week, which I posted.
Good. Thank you. So last year OSHA and a lot of other organizations started what they called Safe and Sound Week. And last year we produced this one. I think Liz put it on Facebook. And it was the first time we at least made a logo. This year it's going to be in August. And we're going to see if we could try to do some events, hopefully with IP&O, to promote safety. And the way they're trying to spin it, and it's the way it works, is that safety is sound business model. Because if you do things safely, or think about doing it safely, and incorporate that into your design and your process, in effect, you actually save money at the end. And I know most people see as our money as 1 year ahead, because that's the way our budget system is set up. But ultimately, if safety is incorporated, it also saves money in the future for individuals that have to do the work on it. So we don't know yet, and then this just started coming out the campaign, so we'll start working with Liz on what we want to do in August. It could be topics, it could be conversations, but Safe and Sound Week is something that the whole world is doing now. So thank you for bringing that one up. Yeah, last year was in June, I think, or was it, yeah, June. This year is going to be in August. So if you think of any good activities for Safe and Sound Week, please feel free to let us know, and then maybe we'll advertise things for a lot of different campaigns. School of Public Health actually used our logo for some of their campaign. So the School of Public Health in Rutgers liked it, and they used it that week too. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I have one, it's a follow-up question. So we do a lot of training after the fact. You know, the mechanics get in here, right to know, lockout, tagout, so on and so forth. When they first come in, though, when we get a new hire, you talk about the culture of safety. You need to immerse them in this and to kind of show them that this is how we want you to operate. That, you know, and I know back in the day in my previous life, you know, I was basically saying that to all of my guys, there's no reason why you can't do your job in a safe way. You need to be responsible for that. I'm trying to make it so that all the hazards are mitigated. But you also need to say, should I be doing this, instead of running into something saying, well, I just have to get this done. So is there any training program out there that you guys are doing that kind of immerses them in this kind of culture and promotes that?
I don't think the university is doing a great job at that right now. So for example, when an employee gets onboarded, first things that they end up doing is they go through the HR benefits training. That for some reason is done all the time. It's the subsequent trainings that they need, like for example, the right to know and hazardous communication is supposed to be done before they start their job. And what ends up happening is that we have the monthly trainings, they may miss that, and then eventually they may never make it back to that training. The way the requirements are is that an employee is supposed to be trained before they're exposed to that hazard. And we're working with Anita, identifying all the different employees with their job roles, so we know what type of trainings they do need to assist the supervisor. Hey, we just hired somebody in. These are the things you should have in the beginning. So we're trying to get ahead of that. So we want to get before the employee comes in, that the supervisor knows what trainings they do need, so we can start scheduling those trainings for them. But you're correct. We don't want employees being put in that situation where they may not know or recognize the hazard or how to do it at Rutgers. So we'll get a new project manager, they may get onboarded, they start doing a project, they get to an environment that has asbestos and they may not know how to handle that. Even though we've been doing it quite a few times, it's that knowledge transfer. And we're seeing that now with individuals retiring and new employees coming in. There's no overlap. So somebody leaves with all the knowledge, somebody new comes in to relearn 25 years worth of information. And that knowledge transfer is important for health and safety because that's where a lot of those recognized hazards get transferred to the new employee. So when they're taking them onto the new job, well, these are the different hazards that we've identified, is how we protect ourselves from it. And I think we're all seeing that where we have the knowledge drain. People leave, and then our new, we hire after somebody leaves. We don't have a good transition between it. And I don't know if we are going to be able to solve that as REHS, but through IP&O, we definitely want to be partners in that knowledge transfer. And hopefully we'll be able to give employees, when we recognize different programs they should be trained in, that some of the time the supervisor can do it too. And there are things that has to be REHS that does all of the hazard assessments. The supervisor is a key person in enabling the employee to do it. And sometimes in the morning, every shop should have a 5-10 minute debriefing. What are the activities we're doing today? And should we plan on providing that protection that we need for that employee because they're going to be working on the roof? Or do we have the fall protection for it? Oh, we don't have any fall protection. All right, let's contact REHS. We'll come over there. We'll help assist in assessing what you may have. And we may be able to find other groups in other zones that already have the equipment that they can do the work for you. Because the thing, everybody thinks that every zone has to have everything. You can have certain zones that specialize in something and you can call them in to do certain activities. We did that with the cooling towers, if I recall. The cooling tower crew was made up of individuals from different groups because they went and got the respiratory protection, they got the training, fit tested, medically cleared for it. That way we wouldn't have to train every single person in every zone. Hopefully that answers your question, but these are...
Anyone else? Good. Alex, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'll do an encore.